They wiped out entire Perplexity company who had raised, who were valued at $3 billion.
AI or Meta could kill you any moment.
The second they know that you're a threat and you're raising a good amount of money, they could kill you in a month or two.
You were a managing director when you were 18 years old.
But how could a screen be thinner than a coin and then be so advanced from other laptops?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of our podcast. Today, we have a special guest who has taken a road less traveled in today's time. Vyan has been working since his teenage in various creative fields. He dropped out of school after 12th grade, and by the age of 20, he was already running an AR VR agency and is now venturing into a tech space with a unique SaaS product. Welcome, Vyan. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So let's start with your journey, Vyan. Dropping out of school and starting to work at such a young age is quite bold. So what motivated you to take this path, and how did your early experiences shape who you are today?
I agree it was pretty bold, but since my childhood, I've been a very academically weak child. So, I was bullied by my teachers, by students, and everyone. So, since the beginning, it was clear I didn't want to take this path. I didn't want to go through educational system. I wanted to be different, and I wanted to be a role model to the kids who are academically weak like me, so that they can know that this paper isn't everything. So I've been a practical learner actually. So I've noticed that since my childhood itself, I learn things pretty quickly if I do it practically rather than just mugging up stuff. So that's when I realized that this is something I'll have to do. So instead of being dreadful my whole life, I could just take this step right now and maybe see where it goes. So it has been an adventurous journey. I've done a couple of things. So yeah.
I think it's an inspiring journey for people who think that degrees are everything, and only after that you'll get a stable job, or you cannot earn money without a degree. Also, I think personally, I also believe on the concept of learning by working and not just by reading or learning. Perfect. I think great to know that. So you've done a variety of creative course like graphic design, video editing. You've done CGI as well. Can you share some highlights from these past experiences and how they've contributed to your current ventures?
Yeah. I haven't done any course per se. It was all from YouTube from scratch. So in school, I was still figuring out what I will be doing in future. So it was clear I didn't want to study, but so I had to learn something. So I came across VFX. I was very fond of these superhero movies by Marvel and stuff. So this one random day, I started searching how these movies were made, and then I saw CGI. So that was pretty fascinating because I've been a creative person my whole life. So for me, CGI, graphic designing, video editing was a way for me to show my creativity, show my imagination. So with CGI, I could create everything. So that is when I started learning about graphic designing, video editing, and stuff. So graphic designing was the point to start to reach there. So back then, I had a lot of friends who did these gaming channels. So back then, PUBG was coming up very strong. So they all of them had the YouTube channels. So I thought I'll have help them. So I started off with basic logo designing from Instagram itself on my phone. With that, I started learning about video editing. So I learned this software called KineMaster, which is on phone. I don't think people use it very much right now.
It's not.
So yeah. Yeah, but back then it was everything. All of these YouTubers used KineMaster itself.
Right.
So I started learning editing on that. And then slowly I started learning these concepts on what video editing is, how merge music to get viewers' attention and stuff. So I started video editing for my friends. Later on, they said you could earn money from this because they followed these a lot of these YouTubers. So I thought, yes, why not? Let's give it a chance. So I figured out freelancing stuff pretty early because what people do is usually they'll learn a skill, they'll buy a course, they'll learn a skill, and once they have a certificate, they'll go out and start charging people. I have this certificate, now give me 5,000 rupees a video. But it wasn't about money for me. So what I did is, I didn't know how to edit those things. So what I did is, I reached out to these content creators with 10,000 followers at first, 5 to 10,000 followers. I said, you give me clips, I'll edit videos for you for free. I don't have any experience. I think I know how to do it. So because it's for free, they didn't deny. And I started learning while I was providing content for them. So then they started posting. I saw their comments about the edits, about what I can do better, and I learned from it. So after working for 1 or 2 months, I jumped on to bigger creators. I told them, I worked for you for free. Now refer me to a bigger, content creator. Then I jumped on to 20 to 50K follower wale creators. So there I learned more and more advanced stuff. So, and somehow luckily, or I don't know how, I managed to get into touch with this creator who used to play for Team India, sort of Team India. He was a very famous player called Oasis from this famous PUBG team, Soul.
Okay.
So I reached out to him. Okay, I'm your fan. I mean, he had, at that time, he had like 300K followers and about 200K subscribers on his YouTube. And I was still editing on phone. But I had learned so many more styles of video editing through phones itself. I used to combine 2, 3 different softwares that gave different kind of editing and combining it to one video. So I said to him, same thing. I'll edit for you for free. I don't need money. You just give me a recommendation in your bio, edited by Gyan Gandhi. That's all I need. So he instantly said yes. I mean, why not? Because it's free. So after the first video, it was pretty great. So I got like 600, 700 followers on my Instagram on day one. And from those followers, I got like 3, 4 clients for 7,000 rupees from just one video. And I was in 10th grade at that time.
You were 16 years old the time.
Yeah. I started when I was in 8th or 9th grade, and then it happened. So that was pretty great. So I figured out freelancing that way, that money is not important at first. I need to showcase my talent. I need to grow it first. So I could have just learned graphic designing and then started charging people left and right for thumbnails and stuff. But I had to grow. So that was pretty good. I did that for about 3, 4 months. And then I got a client called Hale Esports, which is an esports organization from Thailand. So I got to edit for them, and it was a whole thing. Then I had to stop it because of my board exams. So I stopped it. After I was done with those, I got my own PC. So after my board exam was done, lockdown came in. So I didn't get my PC right away. So what I did is, I used to see these videos for After Effects and stuff. I mean, I knew it was time to move up the chain. So I started learning about After Effects. I used to watch these tutorials randomly, even though I didn't have PC, because I enjoyed it myself. So I did that. And once I got my PC, I got to edit for a lot of, companies. And then I went to Kolkata for 2 months to edit for a company, esports organization itself. But then coming back, I realized that this is not I wanted to do for a long term, because I wanted to be a role model for people, and that is the reason I chose this field and not studying. So I wanted to do bigger things. So I took a break from editing and I started exploring more things that I can do with the skills I have right now. So in this journey, I learned graphic designing, I learned video editing, and I learned 3D. So it's like an infinity stones if you need creative stuff. So after that, I got into Web3. So because I knew 3D, I saw people making these NFTs and stuff. So for people who don't know, NFTs are basically images that were being sold for millions of dollars. So they have a lot of tech behind, they have a lot of sense behind it. So it is a whole another topic. But I saw metaverse as well. So I thought I could do this. I mean, I know 3D, I know graphic designing. So just for fun, I knew Unreal Engine a little bit. So I went on YouTube, I learned more about it, and I created a prototype of a platform where people could showcase these NFTs, because people were buying millions of dollars of NFTs, but there was nothing to showcase it. So I thought I'll create a virtual museum where they could showcase it, because the artwork is virtual. So why not make a virtual museum? So that I made on
Interesting idea.
Unreal.
I think I've never heard of a virtual museum sort of a thing. On OpenSea or other platforms, your name is just there that you bought a particular NFT, but
Exactly.
you yourself cannot show your entire collection over there, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I created a virtual museum where you could create your own character. You roam into the museum and you can buy that artwork from there itself. And since I said they weren't just images, they had a story behind them. So in this museum, you could showcase its story beside the artwork, exactly like in a museum. So that was just a prototype. It wasn't even nearly functional. It was just a video that I created because I knew only 3D. I didn't know programming.
Right.
So I created that video. And again, like I did in my freelancing days, I went on Discord servers and I showcased that and I told people that this is what I do. I could do the same for you as well. I went to NFT companies, and then luckily, a company who called Ethereal Collective, they did these offline museums for NFTs, offline events. So they were pretty interested and they offered me to acquire that prototype itself. So that's something that I did. So just because I knew 3D, I could tap into something way different than just video editing and graphic designing. And that got acquired by them. I was still managing director in that company. I helped them build the whole software. But unfortunately, they had to end it in a few months because the Web3 market crashed. But I still got paid. I mean, they acquired it.
You were a managing director when you were 18 years old.
18 years, yes. So, but when I made that software, I was 17. And it was showcased in our event in London. And it was showcased at MetaCon Dubai as well, which was one of the biggest events that happened at that time in Dubai. So it was a great experience. I mean, I was invited to be a speaker there, but I had passport issues, so I couldn't. So, but when I was building this, I was between my 12th board exams. So, and I haven't even bought my books since 11th grade. I do not know anything about my board exam, but still I gave those exams and I got 42%.
So you got through it, right?
Yeah, I failed in accounts because you cannot apply brain in accounts. No, you need formulas. So I failed there. But overall, I passed with 42%. That is how it has helped me. I mean, even the companies I did after that, creatives have always helped me to present my idea in a better way. I mean, I'm a teenager. I still am a teenager, sort of. So when I present my ideas for people to take it seriously, I need to be presentable. So knowing these creative stuff, it has helped me by a lot of extent to present myself in a more professional way and not as a teenager. So yeah.
I think you had a pretty interesting journey, and there's so much to learn for everyone. For anyone who's starting out in any creative field or any field, one thing is there's no lack of resources on the internet. Everything is available for free. You can check out and learn about anything and everything on YouTube to start off with. Second, I think the most important thing, what I feel is that when you're starting out and you've not developed a solid skill, I think you need to provide value using that skill for free. I think I recall what Alex Hormozy said. I think he said a very important thing, that you give until the other person asks, and when the other person asks, that's when you charge them. I think this
Exactly.
is something every starter should remember. And yeah, I think these are the two important learnings from my end, from your interesting journey.
Yeah.
Moving on with now, you've done freelancing. You're also running an agency right now. Uh,
Mhm.
freelancing gives you that freedom to work on your own time, your own space, your own location, but agency brings you the stability. So, what do you
Mhm.
think about that debate, and which one do you prefer right now?
I mean, it's pretty subjective. I mean, both have their pros and cons. And freelancing is for sure. I mean, if you are just looking to make some quick money or something like that, it's the way to go. because starting an agency brings a lot of anchors. I mean, you have to pay other people, you have to go every day looking for clients, and there's a lot of things. So I think, so if you are a freelancer, you could, there's the limit to it. I mean, you could earn a lot by freelancing. It gives you a lot of freedom. At the end of the day, it's about what you want. I mean, if you talk about me, I mean, freelancing are one of the best times I've had financially. I mean, I could work for 2, 3 hours and then do whatever I want, go outside, spend it however I want, without any repercussions, because I know I'm going to get clients tomorrow with no expense at doing it. But for me personally, as I said, money is not something I look for while I choose my career, because I want to build something of my own. So I'll have to, and that doesn't happen with freelancing. So what you need to do if you're starting off, I mean, as a freelancer, uh, you could do it at some extent, and then you could jump on to the next big thing. That's all. If you just want money, freelancing is the way to go. But yeah,
So your motivation to start Augmentables, which is your AR VR agency, was that you wanted to build something of your own.
correct. Yeah.
And like, can you tell us a little about Augmentables? What is it, and what services do you provide?
So Augmentables, I mean, it started off as a gimmick only, as one of my interests, a creative interest. So I started learning about it because since I know 3D and I saw AR, VR is basically 3D. So I thought, why not? So it started off like that. But then I saw intense potential in it. So uh, I'll tell you a story. So I created this AR filter where you could play with animals. You could know their sounds. You could interact with them. And then I have a very little cousin who is in like junior KG or something. So I had her play with the animals using AR, and she played it with for like half an hour, just interacting with animals, just playing around with them. And after half an hour, she went to her mom and we were just talking. And she kept making these sounds of these animals, making these actions about how they attack and stuff. And then my aunt was surprised because they haven't teach animals yet in our nursery. So that is when I realized that this has an actual potential, because in half an hour she knew what these animals are called, how they look, how what they eat, and what sounds do they make. So I dug a little deeper. So turns out so there are levels of understanding when you're studying or when you're understanding a topic. So when you overhear something, you understand only 20% of the data.
Right.
And when you listen to something, you only understand 40% of it. So say if you're a student, right? And you want to copy something during your exams. If you overhear third person saying something to someone else, you'll understand only little of it, right? But when someone else is saying it to you from behind or from front, you'll only understand very little of it, maybe 40% of it. But say if you've done the projects that the teacher has told, you've done the assignments, you'll know almost everything. You'll know 70% of the data that's thrown at you. So that applies to AR as well.
Love.
So imagine if learning is interactive, because projects, students do not do projects. But if you make it interactive, if you turn these topics into games, students will understand it almost 70%, because in class they only understand 40%. And that's if you listen, which students do not do usually these days. So that's when it struck me, because I wanted to build something of my own. I wasn't a good academic learner. I was a practical learner. So it just felt right. I mean, I thought this is what I have to do. So that is why I started Augmentables. So I started freelancing in Augmentables. I started making these Instagram filters and stuff as a freelancer. And then once I had some funds, we built our own product, which are augmented reality books for kids, where we teach various topics like dinosaurs, maybe human anatomy, using these AR books. So that is what basically Augmentables is.
Nice. I think one question I had here, so in layman terms, for everyone who's watching, can you explain what is the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality?
Yeah, sure. I mean, usually people usually mix them. I mean, they call AR, VR, and VR AR. So I'll clear that up. There are three terms: AR, VR, and MR. AR is basically augmented reality. I'll explain VR first, so you'll understand both of these concepts. So VR is virtual reality. You might have tried them in malls. Virtual reality is exactly what it sounds like. Everything that you see is virtual. There are screens in front of you that simulate a complete virtual world. You cannot interact with actual world. AR is a modified version of it where you combine your actual world with virtual stuff. So, which is basically Instagram filters, Instagram and Snapchat filters. So the filters that you see, the dog filter, it is AR. So it tracks your actual face and puts some virtual stuff on it. And MR is basically mixture of it, which is, you could say, it only applies to hardware.
What is that?
So you
The
could
full
see
form of it?
mixed reality.
Mixed reality. Okay.
So it applies to hardware. So you might have seen these Oculus by Meta, which is just a VR headset. You cannot use AR on it, at least on the older versions. And you might have seen Microsoft HoloLens, which is a very old headset.
Right.
It is only an AR headset. You cannot replace your actual world with it. But MR is, you could say, the Apple Vision Pro. There's a button where you can click and you can go from AR to VR or VR to AR. So that's the difference between these three technologies.
Okay. Amazing. I think that's something to learn.
Yeah.
So moving on, you have now ventured into the edtech space with a SaaS product that you've built. I think that combines AR and AI. I'm not very sure. You can tell us about that.
So, I mean, I cannot go very deep into it, but what we are trying to do is we are trying to create a personal tutor for the kids in the textbooks itself, where we convert their diagrams into augmented reality demonstrations, where they can interact with the diagrams, they can understand it in a 3D manner. And we have AI assistants as well. So where you can just speak to it and make the AI and make you understand the topic. So combining these two technologies, I think we can simplify each and every diagram, each and every topic to the maximum extent. So yeah.
So I think I don't know if I've seen this product or if it exists currently. What do you think? Are there any competitors in this space, and what makes you unique? What is your USP in this?
I mean, we have had a few competitors. There is a company who had done this about 3 years ago. They're called Kalam Labs now. I can remember what they were called earlier. But they had a partnership with NCERT, which is the Government Board for Education. And they had built an app for government where you could see, I think, subjects like chemistry and stuff using AR 3D models. So they had done the exact same thing, but they didn't have AI that we do. And we do have a few other features that I cannot disclose over here. We are still in works with them. So we have made, so I've had case studies from Byju's, I've had case studies from Kalam Labs and plenty of other AR VR companies and AI companies collectively. So we have made sure that our product that we are coming up with right now is foolproof. Because earlier, I can disclose this because earlier we had thought we would implement this and we would add this main feature for NCERT where kids can convert all of these topics into their own mother tongue. Because NCERT has this big problem where parents are not involved in kids' studies because of the language barrier, at least in state board. So people from tier 2, tier 3 cities, they rely on teachers and books itself. So parental overlooking in studies is really impactful. So what we thought is we could create an app where they could just speak to the phone and they could ask it to explain the topic in their own mother tongue. So we were going to build our own company around that idea, but then ChatGPT 4.0 came in. So there's this video that they released where there's the father and the son, and it has asked ChatGPT to explain the son a particular topic. And it was basically our idea. I mean,
Right.
they did it way before us and way, way better than us. I mean, we cannot compete with ChatGPT. And not just us. I mean, it's not like we're acting as underdogs. You might know Perplexity, right?
Yeah.
So for the people who don't know, Perplexity is a startup who raised $250 million. Uh, I guess it was their first round itself and on a $3 billion valuation. It's a startup. So they built this about, I think they released this 6 months ago. Do you remember it?
I know. I think,
So,
and recently they were again going to raise another round, and then GPT 4.0 came in, and that's when they did not get the funding for that round. I think this is
yeah. And not just that, I mean, a few days ago, OpenAI released their own thing. I don't remember the name.
Search
ChatGPT, which is basically
exactly what
Perplexity.
Perplexity does, right?
Yeah. So they wiped out entire Perplexity company who had raised, I mean, who were valued at $3 billion. And then they released it for free. OpenAI released it for free.
Right.
So I think for startups who are into AI, who are remotely connected to AI, who sell it as a feature to customers, they need to make sure that it is not replaceable by other large companies like maybe OpenAI and stuff. So I made sure we took a step back. I realized that just blindly putting AI into our app is not the way to go. So we took a step back. We made case studies on these companies and make sure we weren't replaceable by these companies.
Right. So if you're building a GPT wrapper, AI could kill you.
Just not, yeah.
OpenAI or Meta could kill you any moment.
Yeah, any moment. I mean, the second they know that you're a threat and you're raising a good amount of money, they could kill you in a month or two.
Right.
So
Interesting. I think. So, like, what is the current status? Are you guys bootstrapping? You're looking for funding. How are you trying to strategize the go to market for this? Who is your exact target audience? Could you tell us a bit about that?
yeah, so our exact target audience, you could say, is schools. We are going to make it B2B thing. So schools are our target. So as of funding, I mean, we are currently bootstrapped, but we are taking it slow because I made plenty of mistakes with my pilot product, which are our books. So we rushed into it a lot. So we are taking it slow for this. So we are thinking we could join an incubator and maybe we could take in an angel investor, an active investor who could guide us through the GTM strategy and all of that. Because I personally am a product guy because I made a lot of products. I know the creative part of it, but I have yet to learn a lot about business, which I realized after I made a lot of mistakes with my pilot product. So I'm taking slow. I know I need guidance. So we'll probably join an incubator or an accelerator and then plan our go-to-market strategy with them. But as for the prototype, we're going to bootstrap it. We're building the prototype as we speak. I mean, it should be ready in a month or two.
I think when I was of your age, I did not know what an incubator is, what go-to-market is, what a startup is. So it's pretty good to know all of this. But yeah, the idea of implementing and integrating AR AI into edtech to create a personal tutor for kids is fascinating. I think. How do you envision this technology to impact education, especially in tier 3 cities? And what feedback have you received so far?
I mean, as I said, with the current product, we are targeting tier 1 cities as of now.
Okay.
So we're trying to simplify education as much as possible. So I do a lot of lectures as well. So I do public speaking as a passion because I love technology so much. I mean, not just I've made a career out of it. It's not enough. So I go to teach it as well. So in the past year, I've taught about 900 students, college students, about AR, VR, AI, and now I'm starting to give lectures to teachers as well on how they can use AI into education while getting to know what exactly their pain points are on a ground zero level. Because just internet research is not enough. I mean, now everyone has ChatGPT. I mean, earlier it was a bit more difficult. You had to do hours and hours of research. But with ChatGPT, I could have intense, very detailed data in a matter of seconds. But so I realized I need to do ground zero, face to face research. So I go to these schools, I give workshops to teachers on how they can use AI, and then I explain my product. And then I ask them if this is something that they would want, or what better features that I could produce and stuff. So the response that I've gotten is pretty great. I mean, I've had a few problems that I have to solve, but they are not impossible. I mean, they personally realize the potential of AI in education, because as I said, as the graph that I give, uh, they need to make education as interactive as possible.
Right.
Because I'll give it this analogy, people will understand the need for it much better. Your parents might be what age? Of 60,
55,
70 maybe,
60, yeah.
or 60. So during their age, they had movies that were 3 hour long or 3.5 hour long, right? They had songs that were 5, 6 minutes long.
Right.
And then now we have movies that are
One and a half.
1.5. Yeah. And that's not enough as well. I mean, people move more towards series which are 20-minute episodes
Right.
broken down. And that's one analogy. Then you could look at YouTube. So when YouTube was introduced, only videos that were 30 minutes or longer were the ones that got viral.
Hey,
That dropped down to 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
And then now, I mean, you remember searching for a tutorial, and then you remember the times you clicked on the video that was longer than 10 minutes. People go search for the shortest video possible
Right.
because they need answers quickly.
Right.
So if
They
I'm
need
looking for
answers
this,
quick, and they do not have the patience to sit for long.
exactly. I mean,
Energy
if I'm
comes
looking for
not
a
there
recipe,
anymore.
yeah, I mean, I cook a lot. So if I'm looking for a recipe, I need a recipe that shows how to do it in 5 minutes. I just need the list and steps, and that's done. I don't need the whole story behind the thing. And one of the most relatable topic, Instagram itself. We had IGTV videos, 1 minute long videos. Then we have Reels right now. And that is also not enough. I mean, you need to catch the viewer's attention in the first
The
3 seconds.
Right. The hook should be
And
so
not even 3 seconds.
otherwise your video won't be viral. If the hook is not
Yeah, not even 3 seconds. You need to maintain viewers' attentions in the 30 seconds, just the 30 seconds that the video you have made.
right.
So that is why you see Subway Surfers and the GTA videos below. So, I mean, I look at Instagram Reels and I still look at Subway Surfers video, even though I know that this is a trap. And now you have kids that have their own phone. You ask any kid that is in 5th grade or 6th grade, they'll have their own phone. They have YouTube Shorts, they have Instagram Reels. You're what age? I mean, 25,
I'm
26.
I'm 26.
26. We both know how harmful reels are, how harmful scrolling is. Even though we'll have and even after that we'll have our average daily of 2 hours, right? Even though we know it's so harmful
2 hours
to
is
the
still
brain.
on the lower. 2 hours is still on the lower side. I think it's some
Yeah.
days it goes up to 5, 6, 7 hours.
Imagine that impact on students that are in 4th grade, 5th grade. See, that is such a huge problem. I mean, I have a lot of younger siblings that are in that age range. They cannot eat food without phones.
Coaching, right. Yeah, I think the idea of integrating AR and AI into academic textbooks to create a personal tutor for kids is fascinating. How do you envision this technology impacting education, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities? What feedback have you received so far, and how do you plan to improve and expand this product?
I mean, the response that I've received is pretty great. So I've done a lot of case studies on companies, on my competitors, and on the technologies that came close to what I wanted to build. So what I realized is the online research is not that important. I mean, it's great for just knowing where you stand. But in order to actually know about what your product is like, you need to do uh, research on a ground level. I mean, for that, I do a lot of these lectures as well with colleges and schools. So I've educated about 900 students in the past year at 10 different universities. And now, since my product is more on the school side, I go to these schools and I give these workshops to teachers on how they can use AI in education. So, but that is where I get a lot of my research done. So I first teach them how they can use AI with education, and then I get to know what their pain points are and where my product is lacking or what features I can add to make it better. So when I tell them the product that I am going to build and the prototype, I mean, they're pretty shocked. So the response has been amazing. I've had a lot of positive comments on it. So I think I'm going in the correct direction. So that's great. And as for the impact, I mean, I'll give you an analogy. So the kids today that you see, they are more stimulated than ever. I mean, if you consider, say, we'll go in the past a little bit. So your parents must be 60 years old, right?
Right.
Our parents. They had movies that were 3 hour long. Then we have movies that are 1.5 hour long now. And then that's not enough as now. People need, series. They move towards series more, which are 20-minute episodes. Then there's YouTube. I mean, when YouTube was founded, only videos that were 30 minutes or longer went viral. So after that, only 15-minute videos went viral. And then if you look today, I mean, when you search on YouTube, you don't see videos that are more than 5 minutes or 10 minutes, more than that, more than 5 or 10 minutes longer, right?
Getting a lot of views, right? Yes.
People need information very quickly. And then the most relatable one is Instagram. So where we had IGTV videos that were 1 minute long. Then we had Reels that are 30-second long. And that's not enough as well. You need to catch viewers' attention in the first 3 seconds.
Right.
And more than that, you need to keep that attention throughout the video. So that is why you see the Subway Surfer and the GTA videos.
The faceless channels use that, right?
Yeah. And not even faceless channels, even on podcast videos. I mean, you'll see podcast videos upar and then you'll see GTA videos and Subway Surfer videos.
To keep the viewer hooked onto that.
Attention.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. You'll know that they've used this to keep your attention, and even though you'll watch it. So we're old enough to know that this is harmful for us. And you still, if you go to your daily average, you'll see it more than 2 hours. And that's 2 hours of just scrolling 30-second videos. So even though we're old enough to know this is harmful, we keep on scrolling. Now imagine this with
I think
5 years.
For me, my doom scrolling is 2 hours a day on the lower end. I think on some days it goes up to 5-6 hours.
Yeah.
I keep on scrolling through Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn.
And you might say that 2 hours is okay. I can give 2 hours to myself. But it is doing damage on a much higher level. It's not that you're just getting entertainment. Sure, you're getting entertainment. But your attention span is completely fucked. I mean, if you go in a theater to look at a movie which is a bit slow, you'll find yourself scrolling there. You'll find yourself not interesting. And if you look at a series, I mean, now in a series as well, people do not
You're not able to
the patience,
right?
Yeah, for the story to build, they need it fast. So now imagine this in kids. I mean, fifth grade kids, sixth grade kids, they all have their own phones. They are all on Instagram. They're all on YouTube Shorts. And we see the stuff that's there. So their attention span is completely gone. Now imagine putting them in front of books, 5-6 hours a day. It is not possible. And 5-6 hours a day,
taking multiple naps in that time.
Yes, and that's just in school. They have their tuitions. They have to do self-study. Self-study is, gone out the window. So that is where teachers also realize that this is not enough. Books are not enough. And we need to bring some sort of advancement in this sector where students find this, interactive enough, entertaining enough to understand these topics. Even if the kid wants to understand the topic, they won't have the patience to listen to the teacher. for hours and hours.
Yeah, I think this is the world of more video and less text. Uh, as a consumer, I think the world is moving towards that, which is why I think your product would definitely stand out. People would rather look at a 3D in front of them instead of a read through a book. I think critic on that. I think what's funny is that you are not interested in formal education and you build a product exactly for that.
No, so that is where. So formal education, where I struggled is the exact same thing, reading from books, because I cannot visualize stuff on my own. So I cannot muck up stuff that I don't understand. And the education system that I was in, state board, they are hell bent on making students mug up stuff. You don't see education there. And I see the partial problem there is from the government itself, from the schools. I mean, I understand teachers' point of view as well. I mean, teachers are not paid enough there to, go into deeper understanding for the students. I mean, a teacher of mine, I wish I could name her, but I can't. That teacher, we had AV where they play videos.
Right.
So that teacher came in, played that video, and then the video said a certain sentence. She paused it and then repeated the sentence herself, and then the chapter was done. This is what she did for half an hour. I mean, how are students able to understand this? So that is where I faced my problem. I mean, I cannot understand it that way. So that is why I wanted to change it. I mean, with this, I can change it myself. I mean, I can add interactions. I can make those topics interesting myself. So
I think
basically
one interesting learning personally for me that I would like to share with everyone is that for everyone who's looking to build something of their own, who's looking to solve a problem, instead of going around looking for problems, look for the problems that you're facing yourself and build a solution to solve that. I think you'll build a much better product in that case. That is exactly what you've done. I've loved the idea how you found out the problem that you have and you look to solve it and solve for everyone who's facing the similar problem.
I mean, and also more than that, I mean, for entrepreneurs, the major problem that they face is, I mean, you might have a solution that you think it is great. I mean, I think my solution is pretty great, but people might not think that way. So you don't need to you need to work long hours. You need to work, for years to be able to reach that way. You'll face a lot of problems. So more than that, I think whatever you do, you should be able to do it for free. I mean, that is the only way you'll be able to survive the journey. I mean, if you go look for money, I mean, let me think of an example that people might relate most. You've built a platform to help. Say you have your dad's company, and it is a traditional business, and you make a software that simplifies it, that will earn you a lot of money, right? But if that's something that you do not enjoy yourself, I do not think you'll be able to pass the journey on a longer end, at least for the young entrepreneurs who have to prove themselves to get to a point where people take them even remotely seriously. So that is a long, long journey. Since I enjoy doing it for free, I mean, I go to lectures for free. I do one-on-one conversation, one-on-one meetings for people who are looking to explore the space. So that is how I'm able to survive my days and to get to know my product better. So that is the thing.
Right,
Once you know what you can see how you can implement it, and you can go you can go talk to people effortlessly, and then know what's the scope of the product in the industry.
I think for anyone who's getting into entrepreneurship, if you're not doing it for the right reasons, you'll not be in the game for long. I think that's what I believe.
I mean, money is obviously everyone is doing it for money, but you need to have a purpose to build that. I mean, if the moment you see money going away, you'll lose interest in that. So that is my ideology. It's subjective, of course, but yeah.
Right. Once you don't see the money coming in, you'll look for the next shiny object and you'll hop onto the next idea. You'll not keep pursuing that particular idea that you wanted to actually build in the first place. Nice. And I think coming like all this coming from a 20-year-old really makes me feel like what I've been
I mean,
doing last
I,
half decade. So
I mean, it falls into place. I mean, when you are ambitious enough to build something to take steps, it falls. Everything falls into place. I mean, I'll tell you the story of how I got into VR and how I dropped out. So earlier, when I was younger, as I said, I was very fond of superhero movies. So I was very fond of Iron Man. I used to look at these screens that he had and him interacting with it using hands. So that was very fascinating. And I still remember telling my dad, I mean, I cannot wait to try this on my own. And I remember him saying that I don't think you'll be able to do it in your lifetime because that is when we had potato PCs, PCs that were yay thick, and we had phones that barely had any apps and stuff like that. And that was about, I mean, 15 years ago. Not 15, I mean, less than that, about 12 years ago. But still, technology was not where you'd want it to be. And then I started with editing. Somehow I ended up in 3D, right?
Mm.
And then one day my friend bought Oculus VR. I mean, I didn't know VR existed during that point.
how much does it cost?
I went around 40,000 rupees, I think.
Damn. Yeah.
So he bought it for fun, and I went to his place to play. I didn't know VR were this advanced. I went and we played a game which was basically PUBG, but you were the character and you were in the battlefield and stuff like that.
Interesting.
And
Name of the game, if you can recall.
Gun Raiders, sorry, Gun Raiders.
Okay.
It is not exactly PUBG, but it is similar. And I can easily say, if when I look back in my life, it easily that particular moment when I wore the VR headset and played that game, I counted it in. It comes under the top three most happiest moments of my life because that is when I realized that all of my dreams about Iron Man, the screen thing, the interacting with virtual environments with my hands, all of that came true. And I realized, I mean, the past 6 years that I've been working, it all came in place. I mean, learning 3D, learning creative stuff, and being fond of superhero movies and technology, it all fell into place. And I knew that this is something where I belong, and this is something I see myself doing for the next 50, 60 years. And this is something I would do for free as well. So when you're ambitious enough, it falls into place.
Absolutely, I think it does. Uh, so yeah, looking ahead, what are your future plans for your agency? Are you going to shut it off, only run your SaaS? And like, do you have any other exciting projects or ideas?
I mean, my dream would be, it seems like a pipe dream to me right now, but so my dream for my company is to build our own VR headset for educational purposes only, where same, instead of AV rooms, where in schools there are AV rooms where there's a projector. Now though you have projectors in most classes, but there used to be when projector were new, there were separate labs where kids would come and they would show videos, educational videos on projector on a big screen. So my dream is to build immersive labs in schools where students would wear VR headset and teachers would have the control, and we could simulate all of these topics. Say if you're learning about geography, say if you're learning about an earthquake, they could be in a simulation where we simulate an earthquake, and then we could teach them what epicenter is, what happens actually when you're at the epicenter or far from the epicenter. And this goes for everything. I mean, if you go in space, they could experience what gravity feels like. So that is the thing. And people who have not tried advanced VR headsets, they might not relate with it. But I'll give you an example. Oculus has hand tracking, right? Uh, I have played the longest time I've played in VR in online is for 45 minutes in hand tracking. After I moved my VR headset, my hands feel fake. That is the level of immersive experience that you see in the today's VR headset. So my dream is to build immersive labs where we could simulate all of these things. And I mean, from the research that I've done, with this, they can understand the topics in matter of minutes
Hmm.
and in a much better way. So that is the dream. So currently we are moving with this SaaS in schools, and we have our R&D going on side by side with that to build our own VR headset. And after an year or two, once we have had our base with schools, we can introduce these immersive labs. People are doing it right now, but I don't think it is sustainable because hardware is one of the most major hurdles you face. We are not there yet, and it is very, very costly, which schools do not pay for.
Right.
So I think we are way too ahead of our time. So we need to wait and see.
I think it's crazy to think of times when 30, 40 kids would be sitting in a class with a gadget on their face. But like, yeah, crazy things have happened. So I think,
Yeah, I mean, if you showed my grandfather MacBook ka screen, I mean, he would have had a stroke because back then they had
for the box.
screens that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather was an electrician. He used to repair TVs and all. And my father used to do the same with him. So when I tell him about these technologies, I mean, he cannot wrap his mind around it. I mean, how MacBook screen is thinner than a coin. I mean, how could a screen be thinner than a coin and then be so advanced from other laptops? So it is crazy. So I don't think that it's impossible. It is surely possible. It's just a matter of time.
Hmm. I think in this domain, what do you see as the biggest opportunity and challenge that you might face in the coming few years?
I mean, challenge is basically hardware. So the hardware that
The cost
VR
of it?
headset, yeah. So VR headset consists of a screen and glasses and stuff. So that is one of the biggest problems that we face. And opportunities, talking about opportunities, I mean, there are plenty of opportunities right now. If you're a freelancer, I mean, you could go create these AR filters for companies because it's a hot topic and they want to get into marketing. So you could go do that. For game developers, it is the best time to take a leap. I mean, it is not far from the normal game developing. You could easily create VR games if you are a game developer.
And
So these are a few
what role
opportunities.
has AI played in all of this? Has it fast tracked the entire development process? Has it made it easier for everyone to learn and implement and like build products in this space?
Uh, Not really, not with this, because this more depends on your creativity. I mean, not right now, it cannot create 3D models for you, it cannot create game levels for you. So that is something a developer has to do. But one place where AI has helped is research. I mean, before you create a game, you need to do a lot of research. There's a lot of nitty gritty that goes behind all of that. So that is where sure AI has helped a lot. So for opportunities, I think there are a lot of opportunity. AI hasn't fast tracked it, but it has sure helped a lot. I mean, ChatGPT keeps on helping every aspect of life. So with work also, it has helped a lot. It can help you build better code. It can help you. So in game development, you have logic that you need to build before you code. So you can ask ChatGPT to build your logic, which takes a lot of time. So yeah, but the work, the nitty gritty, the donkey work has to be done by the developer itself.
Nice. I think let's discuss on the tough part of the entrepreneurial journey. Starting multiple ventures at such a young age must have come with its fair share of challenges for you. So, like, what are some of the biggest obstacles you faced, and how did you overcome them?
I mean, obstacles I've faced a lot. One I face currently also is, I mean, the age factor. I mean, when you're starting off,
Is that the issue?
yeah, so that's one issue. So that's one. And later on, I mean,
I think that's fine. Zuckerberg built Facebook when he was 20, so I think if he can do it, you can do it.
yeah. And then there's, I mean, this is the biggest one. If you're starting off early, so you do not know a lot of stuff, so you tend to make a lot of mistakes. So that hits you hard. I mean, until last year, I've earned about, say, 15, 16 lakh rupees. Uh, and with my pilot product, I've made a lot of loss as well. So until I was earning tremendously. So I had reached a level where I thought, I mean, I knew business at this point, but turns out I didn't. So I had lost a lot of money as well. So that is one thing a young entrepreneur space. I mean, we think we know, but actually we don't. And that's all right. I mean,
Yeah,
that is the part that we signed up for.
right. I think eventually, when you will succeed in the next few years, in retrospect, you will actually fondly remember this time that you actually learned a lot from your failures and not just your highs.
Yeah, exactly. And I do not, I still, I mean, every day I think because I do not have a safe thing to fall on. I mean, I have no degree. I'm 12th fail also. I'm not even 12th pass. So every day when I wake up, I think of ki, what if I had a degree? I could have something to fall back on. But I, but since I love what I do, I get the energy to get past all of that. I mean, I know what I signed up for, and this is what I had to do. And I think of it as adventure. I mean, not a lot of 20-year-old get to, earn 15, 16 lakh and then blow it off just because of their ego. So that is something that I take as adventure and not as obstacles. And the skills that I've built over these years, just because I love working, that helps me keep on moving forward. I mean, to get money for my daily needs, I can always do video editing, I can do CGI stuff while I work on my things. So that is what gives me power to, sit and do all of this every day, even after I face these hurdles.
I think when I was 20, I was doing multiple internships for 2,000, 5,000 bucks a month. So
Yeah.
nothing to feel bad about. I think you're way ahead in life right now.
Yeah. I mean, and since I enjoy editing, it doesn't feel like a task. I mean, I do it for fun. So that is something I enjoy. But I know it is for a bigger purpose, so I don't regret anything. So yeah.
All right. I think enough of the serious stuff. Uh, let's move on to something interesting. We've planned a rapid fire for you, and
Mhm.
I'd love if your answers are quick and it's candid. So are you ready for that?
Yeah, okay.
Perfect. So yeah, first question is that what's the biggest misconception people have about AR VR tech?
Mixing all of them, mixing AR and VR as one tech, it's different. So yeah.
Okay. If you could eliminate one thing from the education system, what would it be?
Unnecessary exams.
Interesting.
So, I mean, exams are important, but they do not take it as they should. I mean, exams should be a reflection of where the student lacks and then schools correcting those problems. Instead, it's just a race of who mucks up stuff better.
Right.
So that is one thing I'd like to eliminate.
What's the most exciting project you worked on so far? It does not have to be your startup or the SaaS that you built. It can be anything.
The most exciting, I mean, I've worked on a plenty of stuff. Uh, it would be the books itself, the books that I've made, because I enjoyed doing it a lot. So in my eyes, that was the most interesting. But I think the stuff that I'll be working in future would be much more interesting. So yeah,
Nice. Formal education is overrated. True or false?
true, extremely true. Yeah,
Pretty clear. Who's the one entrepreneur you look up to and why?
I look up to Raj Shamani a lot. I mean, because I relate to him a lot. I relate to his journey a lot. So he started off early as well, and he was academically weak. So our story matches a lot. So I relate to him a lot, and I've had the opportunity to meet him offline as well. So he's a pretty sweet person. We had a brief talk as well, so it's pretty fun.
Oh, nice. Where did you meet him? In Mumbai?
So no. So I went to an event in Ahmedabad, and then we were on the same flight as well.
So
So
nice.
we, so I had a brief talk with him there.
Nice. Okay, next question is that if you could collaborate with any tech company, which one would it be and why?
From India,
From anywhere in the world.
collaborate. I have to say, Lenskart. It's not a tech company, I understand. But as I said, I wanted to create my own headsets, right? So actually, two companies. So it would be Noise and Lenskart. So the one of the major problems that we face is hardware, right? So Lenskart has these. They are very ahead with eyewear, right? So in creating these virtual VR or AR headsets, we need to create a very great wearable product, right? So I think Lenskart is someone who can help us do that to a larger level. And Noise, they have done a lot of great stuff with their watches, their sound, their headphones and earphones. So I think uh, these are the two companies that I'd like to work with.
I hope Gaurav Khatri and Piyush Bansal get to see this podcast and get to know you.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, because I had seen this video where they converted their watch into mouse. So they were using their mouse to control their screens, just like the Apple Watch. So I think that integrated with VR could be a great thing. So we could eliminate controllers and then we could use watches itself.
Nice. Okay. What's one controversial opinion you have about the tech industry?
I don't think I have a controversial opinion. I mean, the process that companies follow right now is pretty basic. I mean, you create a prototype, you get market validation,
Yeah.
and then you launch. But this one thing that I hate is funding, the process of funding that tech companies get. I don't, um, since I don't know a lot about funding, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to say all this. But from what I've seen, I mean, I don't understand how companies get funding. So there are a lot of companies that
Are you saying based on how are they evaluated, or are they
yeah,
evaluated on the basis of their credentials in the past?
yeah, on the basis of the credentials, on the overall stuff that they do. I don't understand how they raise all this money in their first round and stuff. So that I have one of my competitor also, better not name them. I mean, I was told by a VC themselves in our meeting that they were going under. And since they were our competitor, they asked me, how do you compete with themselves? Because they have raised 236 crore rupees in 3 rounds. And they are going under even after raising 200. So I was asked, how are you better than them? And recently they have raised $6 million after I've been told that they're going under. So I don't understand how that works. And this is common with a lot of tech companies.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people, they raise funds and then in a few years you do not hear about them anymore. They just
Yeah.
okay. What's the best part about being an entrepreneur?
Being able to love what you do every day. I mean, I don't wake up every day thinking about going to work and listening to my bosses breathing down my neck. I mean, I wake up with a fresh mind and I wake up with a comfort knowing that I have a chance to make this my whole life. So that's the best thing.
And what's the hardest part about being a young entrepreneur?
The exact same thing. The pressure of uh, im- imagining failing and not being able to do this. Imagining not being able to achieve all this and then waking up with my own fear of going to a job every day and stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay. If you weren't building augmentables, what would you be doing?
Video editing, I mean, I would have joined probably a production company building CGI stuff or maybe animating or stuff like that. But something creative itself.
Okay. And what's the one problem in the world that you'd pay to have solved?
One of them would be shutting down Big Boss, maybe. But
I think
apart from
now
that,
Big Boss is in multiple languages, in multiple forms also. I think there is Big Boss OTT.
multiple on OTT as well.
Yeah.
On OTT as well. And shutting off Tarak Mehta as well. I mean, I've had a lot of good memories. I don't want to see them being ruined. So these two. But apart from that, on a serious note, I mean, as I said, education is somewhere that I believe I'd like to make an impactful change, because if you look at history as well, education is what builds the future literally. I mean, if the future is not being nurtured well, is not being taught well, I don't think we'll be able to grow as a country forward. So that's one thing I'd like to change. I'd like to make an impactful difference. So, yeah.
Uh, Interesting thought. Yeah, I think with that we come to the end of this podcast. I've loved talking to you. Thank you for sharing your incredible journey and insights with us today, and it's been an enlightening conversation. Uh, to our listeners, be sure to check out Vyan's work at augmentables.in and stay tuned for their revolutionary edtech product. You'll for sure see it in a few years or maybe in a few months, if God forbid, if you're lucky. Uh, yeah, until next time, keep innovating and stay curious. Bye bye.